Ladies and gentlemen, we now have the ESDM report presentation by IESA. I'd like to invite on stage Satya Gupta, Executive Council Member and CEO of SenZopt, and Mr. Ajay Jalan, Founder and Managing Partner, Next Orbit Ventures, to take us through the ESDM report.
Good afternoon. I think this is the last presentation before the lunch. As basically industry association, it is expected from us to present the state of the union for the industry in terms of basically the data, in terms of the market and production, jobs, all of those things. So in next 5 to 10 minutes, we'll try to give you a glimpse of the electronics industry through the data which has been collected. And unlike the previous year, we are presenting the data which has been basically collected by one of our partner companies, Next Orbit Ventures, in collaboration with Frost & Sullivan. So this is the slide which Rajesh presented in the morning, which was the gist of the industry data which was collected through this report. So one thing which we have never talked about in the previous Vision Summit and ISA platforms is we all in this room, which is probably representing the knowledge industry for the electronics, what is our contribution to the Indian economy? So we estimated that number, and I'm proud to say that basically without taking the manufacturing number, we are contributing $20 billion per annum to the economy as part of the electronics and semiconductor industry. Without manufacturing. Manufacturing contributes another basically $70 billion as of 2018. So it's a very large number. And jobs here, out of that basically 2.5 lakhs jobs, which are basically primarily design jobs, direct jobs, and that basically gives us another 10 lakh indirect jobs. So totally we are contributing about 12.5 lakhs jobs to the Indian economy. So I think this is the first time we are sharing the data, $20 billion, and most of that is foreign direct investment because that comes as a basically part of the design services, captive design center, and so on and so forth, right? I think we are very proud to announce that number. Now going to basically the industry growth. I think as of today, we are basically consumption of electronics products in India is about $180 billion to about $710 billion, basically growing at CAGR of about 21% per year. One interesting fact there is that if we look at the same data in context of the global, the CAGR is about 5%. So India CAGR for basically electronics consumption and the overall market size for ESDM is growing almost at the 4x rate of the CAGR for the world. Now, if we break down these numbers, $180 billion is basically most of it is basically electronics product. About 20% of that is basically divided into design services, component, and the EMS market. And these numbers basically kind of remain the similar numbers, but this grows from basically about 20% to 30% in terms of the component design services and these things. And 69% still remains basically. CAGR for different categories, like product, EMS, component, and the design services, growing over basically the year. And if we see that basically component and the EMS market is growing at much faster rate than the basically electronics product and the semiconductor design market. Okay, this is the methodology which was adopted, that overall different basically products were broken up into the segment, and within each segment typical products which are basically high contributor to that particular segment were identified, and that's how the market size were computed. This is just a honeybee chart of basically different things. Some of the interesting things for basically our member companies and partners, the overall consumption of the electronics product in the defense is very large after basically your smartphones and so on and so forth, right? So that gives the opportunity to a lot of Indian SMEs and small companies to contribute very large in this thing. Another thing which comes up in this thing is that engine control and overall electronics which are going to go into EV and AVs, right? That also is a very large portion. LED, smart LEDs, HVAC, they also basically contribute heavily to the current market. And typically if we see, this is based on the products which are existing today. But if I see HVAC of basically 5 years down, will be very different than the HVAC of today. So that means this whole product mix is also going to explode much more, where we are looking at the wireless HVAC, automation of all different kinds, and so on and so forth. This is just a mapping of different basically verticals. As you see, smartphones, ECU, and defense basically are the three big ticket items in the basically overall product mix. And then we have basically all of these things, medical devices, HVAC, LED, all of those things make the rest of it, right? So, as basically Wally and Raja talked about it, basically all of these electronics products will not be possible without the semiconductor. And semiconductor starts with basically your raw silicon wafer, and then becomes basically your chips and so on and so forth. So that is the key ingredient in all of those things. And our partner company, Next Orbit Venture, Mr. Ajay Zalan is here. He's going to talk more about basically how does the semiconductor manufacturing enables this basically 180 billion market going to 700 billion market, and our production going from 400 billion, something around 74 billion to 400 billion. And with the intervention from, hopefully we can take the $50 billion, making the import gap, what we talked in the morning, below $200 billion, making a net impact of more than $100 billion through innovation and all the other initiatives which ISA is going to take. So handing over to Ajay. Thank you.